Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Zentangle Project Pack number 27. This is day 1, and this is Julie, and I'm so excited to be here tangling with you guys. We are working today with the materials in Project Pack number 27, and our theme for this project pack is reticula and fragments. And this is an idea that was really first introduced in the Zentangle Primer Volume 1, but since then has taken on a life of its own, and it is about time that we give it the attention it deserves in a full project pack. Although over the years, the fragments and reticula, they have popped up here and there, but this project pack focuses solely on them, which is really, really exciting. We are working with the materials in Project Pack number 27, which are available on Zentangle.com and also from some of your certified Zentangle teachers all over the world. But this project pack features a custom book, which contains some strings and reticulum that we're going to be working with throughout this series. We also have our tools, a few microns here in a 1 and also a nice bold 10 in the black and gray, and some pencils are graphite, white charcoal, and blue pastel. So we are going to go ahead and get started and dive right in here. I'm going to kind of clear my workspace here, get comfortable where I am, take a deep breath, and begin with the first step of the Zentangle method, which is gratitude and appreciation. Gratitude for the big things in life and the little things and everything in between. And then I'm going to open my book to this page right here. And this is the spread that we're going to be working on today. As always, if you don't have the project pack materials, you can follow along with whatever you have at home. But purchasing the project packs does support the production of these videos, so it is always appreciated. I'm going to go ahead and pick up the Micron 01 here, and we're going to look right here, and this is where we're going to put the 4 different fragments we're going to be working with today. So it's kind of like a little warm-up. And I'm going to start with my Micron 01. And the first fragment I'm going to do is, if you have a Zentangle Primer Volume 1, you know there's that grid of fragments in it, and this is Y2. And I'm going to begin first by drawing a line that splits that little square in half. And then on each side, I'm going to aura the shape. So now I have these 2 little triangles inside. And then I'm going to connect the point of this triangle to this point, this one, that point, and this point to that point. Kind of creating a coffered look to this space. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And that's it. That's a Y2. The next fragment we're going to do today, again, if you have your primer, this one is P2. And it's kind of like perk, the Tangle perk. I'm going to begin by drawing a curved line that goes from this side to this side. And then I'm going to aura that line to create a band. And then I'm going to do the same thing about halfway down and underneath it. And again, up top, our spacing doesn't have to be perfect. And then inside each of these bands, we're going to put some orbs. And so I'm going to begin by putting a full orb right in the middle there. And then I'm going to squish another one beside it, almost as if it's going behind the other one. And I'm going to do this on both sides and in each of these bands. The next fragment we're going to do, again from the primer, this is fragment T3. And I'm going to begin, actually, first I'm going to grab the micron 10 in black. And when we fill our grid with these fragments later, we will be using the 10, so we might as well just warm up with that one as well. And I'm going to draw a line that goes in from top to bottom. And then on either side, I'm going to draw a line that begins and ends at the same point, but curves slightly outwards. And again, and again. And you can see here that I've kind of gone outside the lines a little bit, but not too much. But keep that in mind. We'll talk a little bit about it later. But not on that first center line, but on each of the lines that I drew afterwards, I'm just going to add a little bit of weight. And again, with this thicker nib pen, you just need the lightest touch. And that is fragment T3, not to be confused with the Zentangle Mosaic T3s. And then this final fragment, I didn't see in the primer, but it's basically the Tangle bunzo. It's one bunzo inside one of our little spaces here. So I'm going to start in the corner. And again, I'm still working with the 10, so this thicker nib. And I'm going to draw a little moon shape and fill it in solid black. And then I'm going to aura that shape, but just a little bigger, and keep growing that bunzo. And I'm, again, trying to stay within the limits of that space, but also going outside of it a little bit. So I'm using it as a guide, but taking a little bit of liberty with it. And so those are the 4 fragments that we are going to be working with today. When you're ready, you can move to this next page. And I'm going to begin in this outermost border here. And I'm going to be working with the 01 to start. And I'm going to divide this entire border into little squares. And so I'm going to start here, right on this inside border, and connect it to the opposite one. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So I've created this first square, and I'm going to try to keep the spacing and the size similar to this as I go around. And of course, it doesn't have to be perfect. But just, I'm going to use this space that I've created as a guide. So there we have our grid to start with, and I'm going to put down my 01 and pick up my 10. And the fragment that we are going to put in each of these spaces is this bunzo one. And I'm going to go back to that first square that I created, and that's where I'm going to put my first bunzo. Beginning in that corner, in that little moon shape, and then aura. What's fun about working with fragments is that depending on how you place them in your grid, changes the tangle completely. So you can repeat this as is all the way across and it will have one look, or can begin to alternate them or rotate them back and forth. And it creates an entirely different pattern. And that's what's really fun about reticulum fragments, is that there's endless opportunities for creating these meta patterns. So today, what I'm going to do is I've drawn my first one, and so I'm going to mirror the next one so the points meet each other in the corner. So you can watch me for a second. You can see how mirroring it makes them so they meet. So this next one, I'm going to mirror it back. And so I'm going to start in this corner. And as we move through the series, you find that these lessons may take a long time. We are filling lots of spaces with these fragments. So I really just encourage you to take your time. Don't worry if you have to take a break, walk away, come back, watch these videos, rewatch them. There's a lot of tangling coming your way throughout this series, but you just do it at your own pace. As we work across the border here, keep in mind that some of this ink might still be wet, so try not to rub your hand over it until it's dry. Do your best with the booklet to turn it as you go. It's not quite the same as working on a tile, but all those basic principles still apply. Remembering to breathe, to take your time. I've recently returned to work after taking some time off after having a baby. And coming back to work after taking a couple months off is always a little daunting, trying to figure things out before that muscle memory kicks in. But my first order of business was project pack number 27, and there's something very, very comforting about the first thing that I have to do coming back to work is just tangle. And there we have our first fragment all around, created this border. Fragments are great border tangles. So why don't you go ahead and give your fingers a nice stretch, roll your shoulders back, get comfortable in your seat again, because we are going to dive right back in to our tangling. And I am going to pick up my 01, and I'm going to skip this section immediately next to my bunzo, and then I'm going to work in this one right now. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the bunzo, is I'm going to divide it into little squares, first using this corner as my guide, remembering this might still be wet if you just finished, so you can give it a second to dry if that is the case. But then go ahead and separate this section into approximately the same size squares. It doesn't have to be perfect. Once you have created your grid, you can go ahead and put down your O1, and I'm going to pick the micron 10 back up. And we are going to fill each of these spaces with this fragment here, which was that T3 and the Zentangle primer. And I'm going to again start in one of the corners, and we're going to draw a line down the middle. And now beginning and ending at the same point, I'm going to draw another line that curves out on either side of that center line. And I'm going to repeat it. I think these have had a couple different names over the years. I think tethered aura is what we call them most often. I'm then going to go back to the auras and add some weight. And then I'm going to again mirror this fragment. So this one, my diagonal went from upper left to bottom right. We're going to go now from the bottom left to the upper right corner and add my auras. And again, just like in the bunzo, I'm using my string, my grid, as a guide, but I'm also, these fragments are kind of bursting out of these spaces. I'm going to continue alternating this fragment all around this border here. Now that I've put all my fragments in, I'm going to go back in, still working with my 10, and kind of just ink in anywhere that these fragments left a little bit of space near my string. This fragment is one you could really play around with because if you did it with the O1, you'd have all these really fine lines and it would really be much more of a texture tangle. But doing it with the 10, these big thick lines, it's still a texture tangle, but it also becomes a drama tangle. And so, like I said, using this big thick pen, we just put a lot of ink down, really giving it some drama. So now we're going to switch to the O1, work with some finer lines, some more texture here, to really balance this out. And so now I'm going to work here in this space in between these two tangles, and we're going to do fragment Y2, this one, the coffering one right here. And I'm again going to start with a grid, but I'm going to do things a little different. My grid's going to look a little bit different. So instead of quartering off into a square right there, I'm going to go from here to here in a diagonal. And I'm going to aura that diagonal. And I'm going to do that in each corner. And now I'm going to separate this section into squares. But obviously in the corners here, they're not going to be square. They're going to be more, what would that be called? I can't think of the name of that polygon right now. My geometry class terminology escapes me. But we're going to section these spaces in between off into squares. And we're going to use this these two ored lines, so creating a band instead of just the thin single line. So again, you can watch for a second. So now we're going to, like I said, fragment Y2. What we're going to do is we're just going to divide the space diagonally, and then we're going to aura that triangle shape inside and connect them to the corners to create that coffered shape. And then one thing when we were drawing our fragments up here, I didn't do, but we are going to do on the other side, is I'm going to add a little weight to the inside of these corners. So you can go ahead and do that here as well. Our diagonals are going to mirror each other, just like we've kind of been doing this whole time. So I'm going to start in this corner. And then here, I've got this bunzo hanging over. So I'm actually going to draw behind it a little bit, just to really play up that it's kind of like growing over and out of its space into the other. Again, just alternating our diagonals. So I kind of like it because it kind of creates different shape and size triangles. And we're going to do this all the way around. And there we've finished the fragment Y2 all around there. And I just love the contrast of big bold fragments and then the ones with the finer lines. So we're going to continue on the same theme with our own O1. And in this band right here, we're going to do the P2 fragment here, which is like perk. I'm going to divide the space up the same way I did with this coffered fragment up here, starting with the corners here and separating it into squarish spaces. It doesn't have to be perfect. And once I have my spaces laid out, I'm going to just pick one to start with, and I'm going to draw a curved line that cuts the space in half diagonally. And then I'm going to aura that line. And then I'm going to do the same thing underneath. And then up here, I'm going to draw my line and just imagine it goes underneath the other fragment. And then I'm going to start with my orbs, squeezing them in there one by one. And then once I have one space filled, I'm going to go to the next one, and I'm going to again alternate those initial diagonals, just like I have been this whole time. And on these shapes that aren't quite square, you just kind of have to see how things fit best for you. And each one's going to be different. And so you're just kind of responding to the space that you're in. So there we have all of our fragment P2 all the way around. And I'm going to leave that center square, or rectangle rather, blank. But you can fill it in with another fragment. You can, this bunzo fragment might look cool growing out of there, but I kind of like the blank space. Always think there's something to be said for that blank space. So we're going to leave it today, and we're going to begin shading now. So I'm going to show you in each of these little spaces how I'm going to shade, and then we're going to go off and shade this whole thing, which a lot of tangles, a lot of shading. So if you need to get up, walk around, get a drink of water, stretch your fingers, or whatever it is you need to do before you start this next process, go ahead and do that. But on this bunzo, on one side, I'm going to add a lot of graphite. And on the other side, it's going to be the blue pastel. And I'm going to take my tortillons and just soften those pencils. And then I am going to take my white charcoal and do a highlight all the way down the middle. On this one, this coffered fragment, on one side, I'm going to add graphite to the outside spaces. And then soften that with the tortillon. And on the other side, I'm going to use the blue pastel, and I'm going to go just kind of color in the inside of that triangle. And that's going to be it for that one. On our perk, we're going to start with that blue pastel. And I'm going to add it inside each of these orbs. And then go in ever so lightly and soften the pastel. And then we'll use our graphite. And I'm going to add some graphite on the top and bottom of each of these bands. And then finally, for this one, our T3, I'm going to add a lot of graphite where all these auras meet together on the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to add a highlight in the middle. And you can either add your highlight with your white charcoal or your blue pastel. So let's see They both look pretty cool. So you can kind of decide which one you want to use. And so now I'm going to begin shading this whole thing. I'm going to shade each of my fragments like I did over here. And then we'll go back in and add some finishing touches all over. I'm going to start with our bunzo just to show you the side that I do the graphite. I'm going to do where these two bunzos meet in the middle. And then we'll do the blue on the opposite side. So again, wherever two bunzos kind of kiss in the middle there, we want graphite in the middle and the highlight on the outside. And then our white charcoal highlight. And so you can always see it gives these big shapes even more dimension. Okay, so we are going to tangle all of our fragments here, just like we did, I showed you over here, or if you feel inspired to do it some other way, go ahead and do that, remembering to take your time, to breathe, and to enjoy the process and have fun. So here I have all of my fragments shaded. I also went back with my graphite pencil, and on my perk here, you can see on the inside of each of these bands on the right side, I added some graphite and softened it with my tortillon just to give it a little shadow on that side. I did that all around. And then I also went back with my graphite and where these big drama tangles grow out of their spaces onto the other tangles, I just added a little bit of graphite there to just really accentuate what was happening here on my book. And then I finally went in, hiding in there, you see my chop here. Even though it's a book, we still want to sign our artwork. But there it is, completed. Take a moment, look at it in arm's length, and then finish again with the last step of the Zentangle method, which is gratitude and appreciation. I am so grateful to be back, to have taken this time to tangle with all of you. I can't wait to see what you guys do with all of these lessons because, like I mentioned, the reticulum fragments are so versatile and changing just the littlest thing can create a whole new pattern, a whole new meta pattern. And so, really encourage you guys to explore that and make these lessons your own. And I can't wait to see what you guys do on the Zentangle Mosaic app and on social media. And I hope you all will join us for lesson 2. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.